Hey, everybody. Welcome to the second episode of Shop Time Live here at Balsa USA South. Today's guest is going to be the 1994 International Aerobatic Club Champion, the 1998 top finisher at the World Aerobatic Championship. He's also an American Airlines captain. He pilots 737s, has over 25,000 hours of flight time, and is also actually newly retired and happens to be a Futaba team pilot. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Matt Chapman.
Thanks for having me, Mean Joe. Appreciate it. Nice to be here.
Absolutely.
From, my basement workshop.
Excellent. I'm hoping we'll get some folks to join into the chat here window, so we might end up having some questions. Gary Ballard says, "Hi, Matt."
Hello, and Gary.
Here we go. First off, I want to congratulate you on your retirement. I'm kind of torn on my end because I'm going to miss watching you at air shows. We've been watching you for years do this. I think you had 18 years as an air show pilot. Is that correct?
Oh, swing and a miss, man.
How many was it?
About 37.
37. Okay. Well, yeah. I would really missed it then. I had my numbers crossed a little bit. But I know
you're making me feel old. When you said the 1994 IEC champion, I'm thinking, man, that was another lifetime ago.
That's a long time ago. Oh, we're getting some people in now. Hi, Gary and Kyle and Mike. Barbie's actually here. Very cool.
Oh my God, Barbie's with us.
Yes, he is.
The monster hanger.
He is here. The monster hanger. Haven't seen Carl yet, but I'm sure Carl will follow along shortly. So congrats on the retirement. Like I said, I for one am a little bit torn because I've been watching you perform at air shows since, I hate to say this with the gray hair, but since I was a kid, I've been watching Matt Chapman perform at air shows. But now I know also on the flip side of that, Matt actually will be able to get more time to be out playing with us at the RC field. So it's kind of a love-hate relationship with the whole retirement thing. So
yeah, I think. After 37 years of doing anything, that's a good career by anybody's measure. I certainly had mixed feelings about hanging up. And when you say I'm retired, I still fly for American Airlines. It's just I just retired from air show flying. Just seemed like the right time to do it. A lot of other things I want to do, and of course, with this COVID-19 deal going around. And the devastating effect it's having everywhere. But, as we all know, being modelers, the model events are being affected. And as an air show guy, almost all air shows are canceled now up until at least June, if not well into June. So if ever, kind of a lighthearted side of it, if ever I chose a year to retire, I think I chose the right year.
Right. Actually, when I was just talking about that today with my buddy Dan Landis,
oh God, you associate with some really questionable people.
Right, I know. I know it's just kind of a mixed thing. So, but we were just talking about that because for someone like you, we said Matt picked the perfect year to retire with all the stuff that's going on. But there's guys out there that's all they do is fly air shows. I know Rob Holland is one guy that pretty much that's what he does. I'm sure Rob, being who Rob is, he's going to be able to find some stuff to do in the meantime. He's probably out there practicing or whatever. I'm sure of it. But
yeah, probably is.
Yeah, but that's exactly what we're talking about. These guys that only fly air show events, it's going to affect them, and it's going to affect us in the hobby. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get started with this whole live broadcast thing, because I want to make sure people know we're all still here. We're all in the same boat together. We're going to have to make some adjustments. They just announced today that this year's Joe Nall event was actually canceled, and that's a big one. There's a lot of stuff going on. But it sounds like, at least at this point, from where I'm sitting, that we might be able to still get some decent flying in this year. And, club fields, we talked about this the other day through my club field, and the board, they decided that, hey, our flight lines are 12 feet apart. You can still go and have a good time at your club fields. Just make sure you keep your distancing until this whole thing blows over. So there actually is some positive stuff coming now in the last couple of days. It sounds like they've got some plans for things. So I'm hoping that progresses relatively quickly so we can get back to the norm.
Absolutely.
So
I know Triple Tree said that they would announce their decision on the second, which is, of course, today. Came as no surprise when I opened my email this morning and saw they made that decision. As they stated, certainly not an easy one, but in keeping with all the recommendations, it was the only decision I think that could be made responsibly. We're all going to miss it. I know I was looking forward to getting down there. I've got a couple new toys I wanted to show off, and it's always a great way for me, anyway, to kick off my season of model airplane flying. And I was looking really forward to going down without the stresses of air shows before and after the Joe Nall. But like you said, there's going to be plenty of other good events, and you'll see me at some of those for sure.
perfect. That's what we're looking forward to. And like I said, that's kind of makes it a mixed bag for me because, like I said, I'm definitely, I know everybody here and everybody watching is going to miss watching you fly at the shows. But on the other hand, we might get a little bit more of a time to hang out with you on the fun side of things.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So we've got several people in the chat right now. We're looking at about 40 live viewers, which is pretty good.
Wow.
We got Carl Hanley that actually just showed up, and Gary Ballard and Mike Barbie. Gary says, ask him about the time he flew it below the trees at Joe Nall.
Which time?
Yeah, exactly what I was going to say. I know that's one of the things we enjoy watching you guys at Joe Nall. I was always get a kick out of you and Frank because you can always tell we'll be setting up at the camper at the top of our site above Vendor Row there. And as soon as we start seeing the big, huge jets cutting between the gap and the trees, we know it's you and Frank down there flying. So.
Yeah, well, that's Frank flying between the trees with the models. Yeah, the full scale demos I used to do at the Joe Nall were really a blast, and I was very fortunate to be given that opportunity by Pat Hartness and the gang there. But just behind the original line of trees, not many people know this. There's a long, narrow lake cut out just behind the trees, and there's even a small dock in it. So as I'm coming down, I can fly down into that 40-foot wide gap and make it look really spectacular. And Wayne Matthews came up to me one day, and as only Wayne can say it, he says, "Matt, man, don't do that. We are your friends. We love you. You scare the crap out of us when you do that." And I'm like, "Ah, it's entertainment, Wayne. Don't worry about it. Grow a set." And he's like, "Oh." So a couple of the years I was there, Michael Mancuso with Klein Tools was performing with me as well. And we each had an opportunity to do a solo demonstration. Well, Michael went and pulled the same crap, and I almost crap myself. And I thought to myself, now I see what Wayne is talking about. It scared me to death. I really thought my buddy had just, bought the farm.
Right.
So when I saw Michael do that, I thought, yep, that is not entertaining. That's actually scary for people to watch, as relatively safe as it was. It does freak people out, and I'm not there to freak people out. I want people to have a good time and enjoy it, not scare them.
Right. And it's all about perspective with stuff like that. You see it from a pilot's view. It's completely different from watching it from the ground. I see that stuff all the time. I think about the same stuff. We were talking about Rob Holland. Some of the stuff, well, you and Jack and Rob and doing the 4 ace routine, you guys from the ground, man, you look like you're literally centimeters apart. And watching it from the ground, it's always a big thrill. And I know from a pilot's perspective, you guys are totally safe and you practice it and it's all good. But to see you guys come together like you do, I've got some phenomenal videos and pictures of you guys right together, and it looks literally like your wingtips are touching. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's that is perspective. A lot of it is perspective. When we're flying the 4 ship, you've got I lead, Bill Stein is slot in his Edge 540, Jack Knutson left wing, Rob right wing. When we get to fly the full act in the Diamond, we typically have about 6 to 10 foot separation during our Diamond. There's some times when we're a little bit closer, times when we're a little bit further apart. And to kind of expand on that, if I can kind of hijack that thread a little bit,
sure,
and brag.
Absolutely.
This year, my last air show is NAS Pensacola, the home of the Blue Angels. and I was fortunate enough and honored enough to be invited by the boss to go for a ride with the Blues during their practice day on Wednesday. So they strapped me into the number 4 jet, and I flew their full routine in diamond in slot. And they do their diamond 360 pass when they open, and it's the Blue Angel signature maneuver of they advertise 18-inch wingtip clearance, and sitting there in the back seat of number 4, the Blue Angels are not telling you the truth about that 18 inches. It's more like 6 or 7.
Yeah.
I mean, the separation between wingtips and canopy to the bottom of the wings. I could have at one point put my hand out and touched the bottom of the jet on our right, the right wingman. I've got to turn. Hold on a minute. My 18MZ was beeping at me.
That's a Futaba radio for those of you who didn't know that. The best in the business.
So, but what struck me was when you see that diamond coming around from the ground, it looks like a perfect diamond. Slot looks like he's directly in back of lead, but in fact, Slot airplane. We were almost directly underneath the right wing airplane. And when you come around that corner, you look like a nice diamond. So airplanes are constantly moving around to give the impression that they're close and that they're in a particular formation. And as the force, Bill Stein was mainly in charge of perspective flying or shadowing. So there's a lot of, during these maneuvers and looping, there's a lot of sliding in and out. Airplanes will go deep on you in loops and shallow on you at the top of loops to again maintain the perspective of wingtip to wingtip. If you flew true diamond and never moved the airplanes, it would almost look like you were never really in formation because of perspective. Right. So there's a lot that goes into it, and I just droned on way too long about it.
Oh, absolutely not. This is what we're here for, man. I can tell you, all of the people that are watching right now, we're up to about 50. They're into it, so it's all good. They love it. That's exactly why we're here. Yeah, that's one of the things that always has kind of boggled my mind about the whole thing, and we get into this a lot with flying RC. It's tough out there. You'll get because we fly a lot of formation flying with the big ones, and every once in a while we'll be flying. This happened to us at Fond du Lac this last year. We were flying big formation. I think we had 26 or 27 airplanes up at once during the gaggle, and we'd be flying the third scales, and somebody'd slip in there with a quarter scale, and it would just freak everybody out. They'd be a mile from us, and everybody's dodging and weaving because they think they're really super close, and they're not. Yep. Because of the difference in perspective. So, yeah.
Well, a perfect example of size difference in formation is Frank Nall and me doing our formation act at Oshkosh and the XFC and the Joe Nall a few times with his 40% cardan and at the time my cap. There were moments during that very basic demonstration you couldn't tell the airplanes were different sizes and thousands of feet apart.
Right.
When Frank first asked me if I'd be interested in trying that at the first XFC up at Troy, Waco Field, I thought he was crazy. I'm like, why waste our time? Why waste the gas? And somebody videotaped it. He talked me into doing it. Somebody videotaped it, and I could not believe what I was watching. It was very, very cool.
Very cool. Yeah, and I've seen that show a couple of times, and it's always great. When I first got started into the RC hobby, one of the first events I attended to go and just watch was XFC in Muncie, and that year you guys did the full scale RC show, and it was pretty fantastic. We got a comment from Mike Barbie. It says, "How much practice does flying formation take?"
A lot. Every year before the season starts, I would say we, as a team, between the four of us, have the better part of 30 to 35 flights practiced. and each of those flights probably 2 or 3 run-throughs of various portions of our 12 to 13-minute demonstration. We have an opening, we have a middle, and we have an end. So we'll take those sections and practice them, several times in a row, or take the beginning and the end and practice those twice each. So there's a lot of time that goes into it at the beginning of the season. And then during the season, when we get to an air show, we like to fly at least 5 or 6 routines prior to rehearsal day of the air show. As you can imagine, a whole other dynamic. Instead of challenges flying formation, everybody has to get. As a team, we're very unique because we're 4 individual solo aerobatic performers, and that's what we do normally. So when we come together the half a dozen times or so during the season to do the formation, everybody's really used to just ripping the stick out of the cockpit. I mean, you watch Rob Holland fly his solo aerobatic demo, and it's like you can't do that or even begin to fly like that when you're in formation. So everybody has to get their formation groove on, and it takes a little while to get everybody settled down.
Very cool. Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned Rob, because I always am in awe of how he even squeezes himself into that airplane.
He's a big guy.
It doesn't seem possible.
Yeah, he's tall.
Yeah. Well, very cool. Awesome. That's great information. So let's talk about what kind of projects you got going on. I see a couple things in the back there. What do you got? What do you got you working on?
Oh man. I was going to clean the shop tonight thinking this was taking place tomorrow.
It's all good. We've all got dirty shops.
So I'm thinking flipping means I can flip you guys.
Should be able to, yeah. There we go.
Yep, there we go. Okay, well, there's the wing of my Super Sinbad. That's a beautifully cut kit from Australia. And I've got to thank Pete Goldsmith for kind of getting me turned on to that. He designed a real nice antique glider called the Sapphire. But I've always had a hankering for the Super Sinbad. So I went ahead and ordered one of those. I've had it on the shelf for a year or so, and obviously now with our current situation, I thought it'd be a good time to do that. This is my Skygate Hawk. It's getting some work done on it. It was ready to go last year, but in programming it, got a few things that I wanted to detail out and make just right. Getting my power box Royale all squared away. So this is a Skygate kit. It's got a King Tech 210 in it. I've had this a few years. Fun airplane to fly. This is probably one of my pride and joy airplanes. This is a scratch-built quarter scale T6 done up in Gitmo colors. It was built by a fellow in Virginia named Bill Denner, a master builder. Just did a phenomenal job. When I purchased the airplane, it had a twin cylinder 3W in it, but I modified it and put a Moki 250 in it, and brought that home this winter to install a new CH ignition system. So pretty excited about getting that back in the air. That's ready to go. Mike Barbie will recognize this airplane. This is my Carf P-47 wing. It's in for a little winter maintenance. You can see all kinds of other pieces here. I ended up dead sticking the airplane into a Warbird event in Frederick, Virginia last year, and broke a gear door. So doing a little bit of landing gear door repair. And this is the P-47 here. Let me get around to see that. Our good friend down at Frank Tano Enterprises built this for me, Frank and Denny. An absolute beautiful airplane, wonderfully finished. It too has a Moki 250 on the front, and it has been modified with the new electronic ignition, the CNH ignition as well. So I'm looking forward to getting that going. I got very lucky on that dead stick. this has a operating canopy and flaps and just a gorgeous plane.
Very
And
cool.
then Grupp RV4, that's ready to go. This is not model airplane related. Of course, there's the obligatory Embry-Riddle airplane. These are actually the wings. And Mike Barbie, I'll give you a smoking deal here if you're interested. These are the wings just about ready to cover for a full-scale Bucher Youngman, the 2-seat Bucher. I've had this for quite a while, but it's ready to cover. The fuselage is over at the airport. My full-size hangar. So I'm trying to keep it slow here, and that is the fuselage to the Sinbad. And of
Very
course,
cool.
my Pete Goldsmith designed E-Flight Mystique RES. I was just getting a new set of wings installed on that last night. So that is kind of my shop in a nutshell.
Perfect.
Not very sophisticated, but it gets the job done. I split my time building things between here, and I also do a lot of modeling out in my hangar at the airport. That's just a couple miles up the road.
Awesome.
And any of my Facebook followers will know I've got a full-scale J3 Cub that is hopefully just weeks away from being test flown.
Yeah, it actually looks beautiful. I've been following that build right along. So a couple of things. Carl says, let's build it. I think he's talking about the Bucher. Let's build it. So
that's actually when the Cub is finished, the Bucher will get dusted off and we'll go over to the workshop side of my hangar and I'll get that fired up again.
Perfect. And then Kyle Jarris from the AMA, he's an education director at the AMA who actually will be on with us on Saturday morning at 10 a.m. says, is there any interest in coming out to visit Camp AMA?
No, none at all. Why would I want to go with a bunch of kids interested in model airplane flying? The last thing AMA needs and model airplane aviation needs are kids. We don't need any more kids. We need more gray hair guys like me.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Actually, that's actually an awesome idea. Depending on the time of year and work schedule, that'd be really fun to come out and visit with them. I've been out to the AMA site a couple times for XFC. A friend of mine, fellow air show pilot RJ Gritter, has gone out and worked with the campers out there a couple years, to my knowledge. Obviously, anything any of us can do, myself included, to support the AMA and certainly the business of model airplane, model aviation. Sign me up for.
Yeah, and that's where we're at too. Is that's one of the things we talk about constantly is the fact that it's the kids that are important. We've got all of us old guys out here doing it. We've got to get the kids in there and get them interested. So that's awesome. Yeah. That's hopefully you guys can get together and make that happen. So that would be sweet.
My local airport, New Garden. Gosh, I think they're in their 11th year now of doing a program they call the Young Aviators or the Future Aviators. And it's a camp they hold at our airport 2 separate weeks of the year. Kids ages 6 or 7 through 17 or 18, maybe 16, maybe. Future Aviators. I'm sure you can find it. New Garden Airport, New Garden Flying Field. But we've been doing that now 10 or 11 years. And we introduce them to model rocketry, RC airplanes, full-scale airplanes. They get to fly in them. They have people come in and speak to them. They've got a bunch of STEM-oriented projects they do all week long. They make a trip to either the Smithsonian or the Udar-Hazy Museum. So, a great program. But having been doing it now for, I think, 11 years, it's so cool to see the number of kids that came out to the airport to do this camp. Either they were interested or their parents brought them out, that have turned into professional pilots, military aviators. We've got two F-16 guys, a 130 guy. We have a young lady flying helicopters in the Army. We've got a corporate pilot. I mean, and the list goes on and is getting bigger every year. So these camps that the AMA are running, or any camp that's aviation oriented, really does and really can make a difference. And what's so cool with these camps that we have, the kids don't come once and go away. Most of the kids, probably a 50 to 60% retention, come back for the next week, the same year, and come back year after year. And then a lot of them, in fact, exclusively, all of the counselors for the camp are former campers themselves, which says a lot for the program. So New Garden Flying Field and the airport manager out there, John Martin, have done a great job in exposing kids to model aviation. I know Horizon Hobbies has stepped up big time in supporting that camp and supplying them with radio control gear and foamy kits to get the kids interested. So kudos for Horizon for seeing that and supporting it as well.
Right, and that's one of the things I say all the time is, because I swim in the scale modelers circles pretty deep. I'm in the deep end of that pool a lot, and I hear people all the time complain about foam or drones or this or that and the other. And to me, it doesn't matter what they're flying. Let them go. Let them go fly what they would like. If that's what they like to fly, let them fly. And to me,
Yep.
And Kyle just posted the link to the New Garden Flying Field so people can check it out. I posted it up on the feed here so you can grab that link. One of the things I always say it all the time is foam is a gateway drug. So that's how we get them started. We get them started with the stuff that they can afford, the stuff that's easy for them to get out to the field, stuff that's easy for them to be able to get started with. And then hopefully at some point they'll move into building kits.
Initially, it's the age of instant gratification, and of course there is certainly some truth to that. But excuse me, I've seen it time and time again, mostly in our aviator camp at New Garden Airport. The airport manager's son, JJ, is a classic example. Started with the plug and play foamies, but one day he woke up and said, "Dad, I found a super decathlon kit online. I'd like to buy it and build it." And son of a gun, the kid took it home, and without any help from his dad, he built this thing from scratch, tested it himself, and he's now flying it. And now he's got the bug to do, like you were saying, the real airplane flying and the real airplane building. He's got balls of dust in his veins now.
That's awesome. That's what we like to hear.
Yep.
To me, this whole thing and I've spoken with several of the folks from the EAA about this whole FAA thing. And, I'm hoping that, because it's kind of, all that's kind of got put on the back burner now because of all the stuff we've got going on with the COVID-19, that's kind of gotten forgotten about. But I hope that when this all finalizes itself, that the EAA can get with the FAA and get them to understand what we do supports all the stuff they do inside the FAA. That's going to be huge, because if you don't have the interest in aviation for kids, then you're going to lose a lot. You're going to end up losing a lot of, full scale pilots. You're going to see a decrease in the amount of people that are going to places like Western Michigan Aviation University down the road from here, and less corporate pilots. And I just think the whole thing needs to work together. And I'm hoping that cooler heads prevail when we get to that point where they actually figure out a way to work together on it. So.
Absolutely. And I don't know how many of the people that are tuning in here have a full understanding of the relationship with EAA and model airplane flying, but every person on a senior level at EAA grew up flying radio control model airplanes, and most of them still do. So they're a huge advocate for the AMA and for model aviation in general. So when you see a post from EAA about that situation and the FAA, they are on our side and are going to bat for us, not only from an EAA standpoint, but from their personal standpoint. So it's a huge benefit for us as modelers to have EAA on our side.
Yes, I believe in the end. I know people don't really see it yet, but I believe in the end that not only having the EAA on our side, but also in the end, I hope it turns out that FAA ends up being on our side as well. I think they just need to dig a little deeper. I think they kind of just cut it off at the top and didn't really look and see what we have going on. And I think some decisions were made based on, I hate to say it, but based on ignorance. They didn't take the time to dig deep and figure out what it is we do. Start talking about the AMA. The AMA has functioned for what now, 75 years, I think it is, with no full scale aviation incidents. Zero. There's nothing ever been put on record that says a remote control aircraft was involved in any type of a loss of life or property damage for general aviation or full scale aviation at all. So to me, that should be what they kind of look at is that, hey, these guys are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Let's figure out a way to do with them like we've been doing since 1936 and come to a common way to do things. I understand they need to regulate, and I understand that they need to figure out a way to keep everybody safe. And trust me, I am all about keeping everybody safe. But I think it's important for us to remember as we move forward, even though it's not in the highlight right now, and things have kind of moved over into another box right now, that is still there. I don't want people forgetting about it. And honestly, right now, because I believe the total count on that was, I want to say 30,000 comments. I think somebody will probably correct me on the chat if I was wrong, but I believe they ended up with 30,000 comments on that. They actually have to go through and read every single one of those comments. That's part of the law for this whole thing and it's going to take them, especially with this whole COVID-19 thing going on. It's going to take them a minute to get their idea behind them. And the same thing, my boss over at Boss USA, Mark Inderby, tells me all the time about, we went through this with sport aviation back in the day, and it took them 10 years to get any type of a regulatory system put together that worked for everybody. So
yeah, yeah, it'll work
very
out.
cool.
I'm not a doomsdayer, so I'm
I'm not
sure
either.
model aviation will be around for years to come for everybody to enjoy.
Exactly. And for those of us that enjoy, it's funny if you look at that language, and a lot of people haven't taken the time to actually read it, but if you look into that language, it says in there, they set it up just like they set up like with the ultralights and home builds. If it's 51% built by the owner operator, then it doesn't fall under those regulations. So it's one of those things. We'll see how that pans out.
you use the U word, and I do still find this, and you see this post on Facebook every now and then when the discussion gets heated. It's amazing to see an ultralight taxiing out with a person in it, and they can go fly it without any oversight whatsoever. Yet our 4-pound radio control model potentially has to be registered with a beacon on it.
Exactly. Yeah. And we had those memes were running crazy. Like you'd see the ultralight home build and you'd see 3 people in it with the fan blade right behind their head or whatever. And then you'd show this takes regulations. This doesn't.
Right.
Right.
But then again, when you got people like Mike Barbie and Dan Landis flying model airplanes, I think maybe regulation is the way to go.
I actually agree 1,000,000%. Having flown with both of those guys, regulation is a perfect idea.
Absolutely.
So, okay. So, I know it's kind of hard. I was going to ask you about future events, but it's hard to judge what future events are going to look like right now to see. So that's probably not going to work. Mike Barbie, after you just shot him down, says one of the highlights of my RC flying was with you at Oshkosh. I thought that shed a lot of light on our hobby. Let's do that again, he says.
Yeah, that was a great time. For those that are listening that might not know this, 2 years in a row, I was invited. And again, this gets back to EAA being a huge advocate of model airplane flying and the AMA. They wanted to highlight and put on the main stage model airplane flying. So they, knowing I was a model airplane guy, approached me to see if I could put together an A list of model airplane guys to do a demonstration during the actual air show on the air show site during Oshkosh.
So wait, don't tell me Mike Barbie was on your A list.
Well, we all make mistakes, Joe. So, but I mean, we had a real group of characters. Let me tell you, we had Mike Barbie, we had Brian O'Meara flying his big P-47. We had Paul Letourneau up from just north of Wisconsin. Will Behringer was there with his big Cub. Frank was there with his large Cardin. And of course, I was there in the cap those 2 years flying formation with Frank. And it went over amazingly well. It was very well received. We did a good job. It was the first opportunity for the National Air Show Coordinator from the FAA, the number one person at the FAA overseeing the air show industry, Sue Gardner. It gave her an opportunity to see firsthand model airplanes in action, professional model airplane builders and flyers in action with quality equipment, and how we conducted ourselves. There were some stressful moments for sure, but it was new to EAA. It was new to the FAA, relatively speaking. So I think a lot of good was done. And every year since then, even though we've not been back on the main stage, over at the gosh, I don't know what they call it, but it's the grass runway where the ultralights do, and they
over by the vintage hangar, right?
Yeah, they fly evening air shows over there and evening demonstrations with ultralights. Every year since, they've been doing a lot of model airplane demonstrations over there. Now, Ace the Chase has been over there every year doing evening and nighttime demos. And from what I understand, he absolutely kills it, and the crowd just goes crazy for it.
Oh, yes.
Which doesn't surprise me, because, I mean, Oshkosh, it's an aviation crowd.
Exactly.
And they're going to like anything aviation. So yeah. But Mike, you're a little late. I don't know if you've heard, Mike, but I've retired from air show flying. So the Let's Do It Again, you're on your own. Actually, I could probably still pull a few strings if anybody was interested in doing that, but it hasn't been discussed lately. But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and that brings up to me. Mike said it's Pioneer Fields where the field is, so that's it.
Yeah.
One of the things I would love to see, and I would love for all of us, the names that you mentioned would be great. I flew this last year at Fond du Lac with Brian O'Meara. We didn't have Frank, wasn't there. We had Pete Goldsmith, Brian O'Meara, Paul Letourneau. Me and Paul Letourneau actually did a heritage flight with his, gosh, I can't even remember, his A-10. I think it was his A-10 and the triplane. We did a heritage flight together. So
oh, wow.
It was very short because he ran out of gas quick, but it was pretty cool to see them all. I would actually love to see something like that organized for any of you event organizers out there, to maybe get these folks together that are making the decisions in the FAA to come out and invite them to like that type of an air show where they can come out and actually see what we do firsthand. Maybe that will help us along our way of getting a solid core of rules that help us and benefits all of us. So
I don't disagree with that, but I think you have to be very careful going in that direction.
Sure.
Because once you put the FAA in a large group of people, you lose control as to what is being said to that FAA person or people. And you could lose control of that situation very quickly.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point.
So make sure that if that person is there, they're being hosted by a club member that you know and trust, that knows how to speak to a government regulatory official.
Right.
And triggers that you want to stay away from, and words that you want to use in
sure. Yeah. I recommend
bringing them into our events.
I vote for the AMA folks to do that. Tyler Dobbs, we're calling to you, buddy. That would be a great job for you.
Exactly.
So awesome. Well, we're coming up on 40 minutes. I want to make sure that we thank Matt very much for being with us today. We really appreciate all the live viewers and all the like comments. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for Matt for showing up and taking us a little round of his shop and telling us a couple of stories. And we greatly appreciate it. So
My pleasure. Any parting questions by any of the viewers out there?
We got any last questions out there? Kyle says everybody should bring their smaller park scale RC stuff out to Pioneer Field for evening flights.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yes, and Tom says Paul is good people, and that is a true story.
None finer. None
Yeah,
finer.
I don't see any questions right now. Oh, you're in big trouble, Matt, because Mike Barbie says I'll get even Saturday. He's actually going to be on the show Saturday evening. So,
oh, then I know where I'm going to be Saturday night.
Exactly.
And I've got a question for you, mean Joe. There.
Sure.
How'd you get your nickname? You don't seem all that badass to me.
All right. Yeah, I know. Well, it's a long story, actually. When I was working for RC Groups, we were at the bar in Toledo. So this would have happened probably 6-7 years ago tonight, actually, is probably the anniversary of that. And they were trying to get my attention. At the time, I was working for SIG as well. And we were in our business meeting. And then you know how the bar in Toledo gets as you're sitting there. We got there we went from the show floor at 5 right to the bar to start our business meeting. And as we started our business meeting,
no,
it really was. It actually was. For real was. We were talking about business, and as the minutes passed, we all started having to lean in further because that bar, as you know, the fire marshal would have a heyday because I know that bar gets overpacked with people on a regular basis. And Mr. Matt Gunn and Jim T were at the bar, and they were trying to get my attention. And they were yelling at the top of their lungs to try to get my attention. And I looked up, and I guess I had an irritated look on my face. And Matt goes, "Oh, Mean Joe." And he threw it, stuck, and that's where it's been ever since.
Oh, very good. Very good.
It was a fun time. So cool. Yeah, Steve says, I blame Jim T. I agree. I blame Jim T, and I also blame Matt as well. Matt Gunn. So very cool.
Excellent.
All right. Well, awesome. Well, Matt, again, I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on the show. I know we kind of put it together at the last minute, and Matt jumped right in with both feet, and we got her done. So it's all good.
It was a lot of fun. I appreciate the invitation. And
anytime.
And when you send the check for my appearance fee, there's 2 T's in Matthew. Okay.
No problem. All right. Well, as always, everybody, thank you very much for watching, and happy building.
Thank you, guys.
And out.